Hello and welcome to One on One on Plus TV Africa, where we get to talk about very interesting issues with very interesting personalities. And today we'll be one on one with the Executive Director of TLSDI. It is the Transformative Leadership and Sustainable Development Initiative. His name is Opeyemi Oriniowo. It's good to have you join us.
Pleasure is mine.
All right, so let's go straight to the point. What is TLSDI all about?
Oh, well, I'll say I think we're a non-profit. A youth-led non-profit civic hub focused on enhancing processes. Our major objective pretty much is we realize that there's a need for young people to take ownership of the country, that if a country is being created in which they're going to live to be part of the consequences, it's really important that they're part of the process as well. So the reason why we're established is pretty much to put young people on the table. We believe that young people need to take ownership of what the kind of country they want, and they need to play an active role in it. So pretty much Transformative Leadership and Sustainable Development Initiative is a non-profit civic hub and think tank focused on enhancing processes for sustainable development. So
how were you able to gather people? Was it just something that, you probably just thought it was a good idea because of the timing or the time that you found yourself? Was it timing, or was it that it was a cry for young people?
I think for me, I've been part of the development sector now for like 7, 8, 10 years. My background is in international development, so I read international development focused on poverty and inequality. I did study that as a postgraduate, and I've been involved within the civil society space. Personally, I was a strategic partner of the Not Too Young to Long Run movement. We were involved in the mobilization leading up to the signing by the president. And I've personally also worked on several projects funded by different donor partners, from the UN to Ford Foundation to World Bank. So I've been within the civil society, active citizenship space. However, the initiative, TLSID, is coming right now because we feel that there's a need for us to fill a vacuum. There's a new niche we need to carve for ourselves beyond the Not Too Young to Run movement. Not everybody will run for office, but everybody has a role to play. So pretty much what we're set up to do is to make sure everybody understand the process for change and the role they have to play, to create the Nigeria of their dream.
So, a lot of people would say that young people are not necessarily ready, and not necessarily in terms of leadership, because we saw what happened during the elections, the disparity between the figures of people who registered for the voting and people who showed up for voting. But again, when in terms of skills acquisition, in terms of stepping up to the plate, we hear them talk more about it, but we never get to see the action. So what makes you think that young people are really ready to take on this course that you're bringing to the table?
To be frank, I don't like to subscribe to the argument that young people are not ready. I think that those kind of narratives further push us not to act. I think what we have going on right now is a whole lot of people who are in despair. The system has failed them. They are in a system whereby, in a country whereby standard of living, the basics of, go to school, the system pretty much tells you to acquire this number of skills, get out, get a job. But right now we have a system that doesn't guarantee all of that. So they have a system built up to fail them. So the greatest of what we even have going on is called the brain drain. So the best of us are leaving the country. So without deliberate, intentional attempt right now to rescue the situation, I don't think there are no young people who have the capacity. Because even if you compare them against the establishment, the so-called people who are saying that young people are not ready, let me try and use that age divide, that dichotomy, and say that they are the one. We've been led by a generation who went to free schools, who have the best of the best. So they're not in any position to say these young people who are we still have quite a good number of them creating value out of nothing. And you have a cabinet with over 50% of them who have never turned 10 naira to 100 naira. So they're not in any position to say young people are not ready. I think they just need to be sensitized. What we need to do is to organize ourselves. That's what we need to do at this moment. And that's what TLSD is trying to do.
And where does this sensitization begin? I'm sorry, I have to take you up on this again, because as much as we want to say, young people are ready, but they're just demoralized. As much as we point fingers to those people who we say are not letting us be what we want to be, who are the people who aid and abet these people? Who are the people who carry ballot boxes? Who are the people who are engaging in electoral violence, cultism, and all of those things? Young people.
What I would say right now is I think what you're talking about is the weaponization of poverty. So in a system whereby you have an average standard of living is not guaranteed, people will literally tell you that we all have a price tag. It just depends. We just don't want. I think just before now, maybe you're having a conversation about vote buying, and they said 5,000. I won't take it. Asia, you won't take 500,000 or you won't take 100,000. So at what point is your breaking point? So when we have a system whereby the average standard of living is not guaranteed, even research has shown right now that for democracy to be effective, you need to at least guarantee a certain level of living for the people. So people have to be enlightened, they have to be comfortable enough to be able to make the right decision. But for as long as it's giving me incentive to take 10,000 naira, and I know that when I did not take 10,000 naira, it didn't make any difference in my life anyway. So if I can take 10,000 naira now, and I know that at least I got something in my hand and I moved forward, and that is it. So at the end of the day, human beings are rational. So we need to put that into consideration. That's why what we're trying to do right now is that we're not going to wait till 2023. In fact, we believe that there's so much we can do. Not everybody will run for office, but we can engage the system. We can influence the system to deliver for us. So those are part of the things that we want to try to do with the organization.
So I see that when I was reading through your core values and your statement, you talked about civic engagement. You talked about harnessing Africa's youth bulge. What exactly does that mean? I
mean, the youth bulge, and we're having a conversation with the team and we're talking about, is bulge a good word? Maybe we should use the word potential. And I sided with the word bulge because the bulge right now is being realistic with the fact that we have an explosive population growth that is almost dangerous. And the earlier we realize that this right now, if you don't take a conscious effort to make it a potential, it's going to be a disaster in waiting. Because we have schools that are churning out graduates without jobs, necessary jobs for them. We have people producing children at a rate that is not sustainable compared to the amount of food crops that we're producing. So the bulge to me right now is more like, okay, it's telling me in the face that there is a growth. It could be bad and it could be good. That's the reality. So without conscious effort to turn it into a potential, we are playing. And what I find unfortunate right now is that what actually should be national discourse. The country, and I think the media also has a significant role to play in it. The country is at a position whereby what should actually be our conversation, what should be at the front burner of the national conversation is not what is. So if we go into the 2019 elections and how we moved into that, so there's so much conversations online about, oh, who did that, ethnic bigotry, this religious that religious that. Where was the conversation about true federalism, about state police, about derivation principle, about the real issues that affect the people, you know? So the political elite or the media space and all of the people right now are in the position to determine what the conversation is. Maybe we've allowed this bigotry and this division consume us so much so that we don't care about the actual big picture. So
what kind of civic engagement are you going to be undertaking? What levels of discussion? Because again, let's not forget that the Nigerian youth that we're talking about, or the average African youth,
they're in different classes. You're right.
Exactly.
Very right.
So where do you start? Where does this start from? Where do you want to start gaining traction from?
Okay. We recently last week launched a 5-year strategic action plan. We actually decided we wanted to focus on 4 major areas for the next 4 or 5 years. So one of them is one that we felt that is important right now to put young people on the table, that we're able to influence public policy. So we wanted to give young people a voice. We wanted to in the next 4 years, we want to provide young people a living. So we want to look at how we can actually create, aside from talking about it and wait for government to create jobs, the fact of the matter right now is that no country has moved forward with government creating all the jobs. In fact, government cannot create all the jobs. That's not even their role. You know, so they're supposed to enable private sector. So what we want to do as an organization is how can we add our own bits to the process of providing required capacity, because we realize that not only do we have an unemployment problem, we have an unemployability problem. So we have a lot of people who are graduates and all of that, but they've not learned the process of creating value. So part of the things we want to try and do in our own little space and with the partners that we're seeking to work with right now is to see how we can address that. How do we put skills in the hands of young people? Are we trying to focus on agriculture, ICT, SMEs? What are the market-based training we need to do to young people as an organization? Also, the top thing we wanted to do is mental health. We realized that we're in denial. The country is in denial about the drug problems that we're having. And it's also a product of the high level of poverty that we have. People have to find solace somewhere else. I call it escape. People need to escape their misery. So if there's a platform or something, substance that offers them an avenue to escape from their misery, why not if not? You know, so the first thing we wanted to do also is leadership capacity. We do not want the Not Young to Run movement. Our clamor for youth participation is not just about we want quite a number of people to just escape. So you just escape and join the bandwagon.
Talking about that, you were asking the government to give you 40% representation in the appointments. What do you mean?
I mean,
You want more youth?
Yes, we want more young people on the table.
At one time, President Olusegun Obasanjo had said that that young people clamoring for being in government, especially those who have no experience, might be a bad idea.
You know what? I definitely let me first.
Because leadership is not necessarily the same thing.
I agree with
as
you.
running a business.
I agree with you. Okay, but I would say, I mean, if you want to go to that, I would say that we're done with professional politicians. We need more professionals in politics. That is the only way to create value. Because if the people who are there right now, we have a system where has career politicians. What have they done? To me, I do not see anyone's business going to politics if you've not created value somewhere else. Politics shouldn't be a permanent job for anybody. You know, you should have created value. So that's what even creates this whole desperation, this do or die politics and all of that. So we need to make sure that the people who are putting on the table are people who have created value. You must have an expertise somewhere or something before you now want to bring to the private sector or to the public sector. You know, so those are part of the things we want to address. So I wanted to break down those 4 things because there are different interventions under each of them. And the first one is the voice. We felt that young people need to have a voice. So part of the interventions we have under that is we have a couple of programs, radio programs. We know that the media plays a very significant role. And we also, like you mentioned, we also understand the elitist component of radio or TV or DSTV. So our broad plan, as far as communication is concerned, is also to break it down to the grassroots. We're interested in working with local radios that are even using local languages. We want to go that far in terms of making sure that it's an enlightenment issue. When people don't know right or wrong, they can't make the right choice. Democracy is a joke without the right choice. So part of what we want to try and address right now is to make sure that we have 4 or 5 years right now to build from now to 2023 to see how we can enlighten or increase the level of enlightenment of the people. So under that as well, we also have the Surge Conference, and we're having the first one coming up on the 28th of March. So the Surge Conference right now, what we're trying to do with that is we're bringing, now, there are few young people right now who have a match, House of Reps, House of Assembly, this and that. We're bringing all of them together. Now, by crook or hook, by happenstance, by privilege and hard work, all of those means you've managed to emerge. You know, it's important for us to recruit you, to make sure that you're still very much rooted in our aspirations of what we want this country to be. So we want to create this space where we're bringing these young guys who've gotten into public office, as well as people in the private sector, people in the media, people in enterprise, young people within that space who are leaders within their space to come together to have this conversation, because we realize that it is actually at the intersectionality of all of these sectors that change actually happens. So what the Surge Conference is trying to do right now is to bring together thought leaders across sectors. Now, what do we want? Now, you know this guy is going to House of Reps. You know this girl is going to House of Reps now. We want to address this issue. You're an expert or you're an enterprise. What are the major issues? You're spending 50-60% of your revenue on generating electricity. What can we do to help you, make your work better, and so maybe you can employ more people? So those are part of the conversations we want to have in the public space, create a safe space for young people to be able to have that conversation. Then we're also inaugurating the TLSDI Youth Think Tank. We also know we understand the process of change. Not Young to Run movement started some time ago. It took time for them to synergize and create that system for change to happen. A lot of people just heard. But these guys, Yaga and the team that worked together to achieve that, there was a whole lot of process involved. So we want to create that space, that synergy between all the sectors to be able to effect change moving forward, building on the record of that. Of if we can achieve this, there's so much more we can address as well, both in terms of policy, both in terms of legislation, both in terms of actual change, because sometimes it's a disconnect, actual implementation of those policies. So those are part of the things we want to do under giving young people a voice. So under the living, like I mentioned earlier, we're talking about, we have this Youth in Enterprise program in which we want to more or less provide skills, soft skills for young graduates. So it's not enough for you to have read BSc Engineering or BSc Business Administration or whatever course you read in university. The labor market is entirely different. So we want to be able to provide these skills that are market driven, that we know that this is what is available in the market now. You would not don't just be sending applications out there, or even I realize some of us even are in our positions whereby because we realize that now there's no job for me, I have to create a job. So those are the conversations we need to have. And we want to make it youth-led. We want to make it an example that there is so much young people can do coming together. Like you mentioned, we're not thinking power is going to be served to us a la carte. That, we're just going to rest our horses and remain. For political empowerment to take place, you must have economic empowerment, because it costs money to run for office. So within the next 4 or 5 years, how many millionaires can we have? How many young people can we get into enterprise? It is only after we achieve that we can actually now start talking about real political change. If not, I always say to young people, like when we're having a conversation, it's more or less like whoever pays the piper. If we're able to organize ourselves together right now and you put me forward, and I get to National Assembly or State Assembly or even become local government chairman, I'll only answer to the people who put me there. It's only normal. But if a godfather shows up and says, oh, I like your face, I want to make you this and that, come on now. You do not expect me. Now, I only try and make sure that people are not too angry, but my real loyalty lies with my co-financier. So we need to understand this level of political enlightenment as well. We need to understand the dynamics. This country is small, but yet so big.
I want to push you a little bit on this. I mean, you sound really excited, and I wouldn't want to burst your bubbles, but there have been several people who have come up with these very interesting ideas on how to move the young people forward, how to spread our tentacles, etc., etc. But where are they now? So what makes you think that you can sustain and stay the course?
To be frank with you, I will always say one thing. The reason why we started in the first place is we're driven by passion. Passion is the only thing that we rely on to be able to make things happen. And I always say one thing, partnerships, collaborations. Most often than not, when people come into the space, there is this thing about trying to be the face of it or there's a self-aggrandizement component to it. Okay, so I want to be the one that is out there, I want to use it. We cannot get anywhere. I understand that. But by virtue of the fact that I'm executive director, I'm leading a team, we're on a parallel team. Everybody has a voice. Everybody is a stakeholder in it. So when we're able to create that kind of space whereby everybody knows that they are a stakeholder in it, it's not about me, it's not about you. It's a collective agenda. It's a collective rescue mission. Let me use that word. So what I would say would keep us running is our passion and the collaborations that we seek to achieve or we seek to get to move this journey forward. And I always know, I'm not naive to think that there will not be setbacks or will not have challenges that just make us realize that, man, is this Nigeria really worth it? But at this moment right now, we believe it is. And when we're putting ourselves out there to say, well, this is what we want to do, using a non-profit framework.
Talking about challenges, what kind of challenging things have you encountered on this journey? It's a new thing that you birthed, amazing idea, but have you encountered any challenges and what could they be?
Right now, I don't think I'll even point. If anything, I would say it's like, I feel like, because I can also be a spiritual person, you know, that's different from being religious, but I believe that sometimes when you have difficult moments or when you feel as if, man, somehow, somewhere, if the idea was actually meant to be and the intentions behind it and the work and you're not ignorant, all of the signals that you need to show you that you're on the right path begins to show up for it. So I said something about collaboration. That has been very, very instrumental, very key for everything we've done so far and everything we want to do. So we're putting ourselves here to say, yeah, you want to work with us, you have a part, you have a role to play. Everybody has a role to play. How do we institutionalize it? To be frank, in Lagos here, we have a small office in Abuja. The real plan, the country is 36 states. So we're hoping that, oh, okay, we can just create this framework, that this is the picture, this is the guiding principle, this is how we want it to run. We expect that the document itself takes a life of its own. So maybe people in Kafrancha, people in Kaduna, people in Adamawa tap into this idea. It's an idea and it's bigger than everyone.
And that's why I asked earlier on, how do you hope to connect with these people? Because they're all over the place. How do you intend to get those people? Because I see Africa in your statement. So it means that it spans beyond the shores of Nigeria, but you have to capture Nigeria before you go to any other country. So what plans do you have in place to reach out to all these young people, spread not necessarily in the metropolitan cities, but in the rural areas?
It's pretty much network. And to be frank, I will say even in a system where there's no order, if you still look at it well, you'll find a pattern, even if it's a zigzag pattern. So we've looked at Nigeria's civil society space and the way we organize ourselves. Unfortunately, I mean, we have organizations like the Arewa, the Iwanese, and all of that. They are still structures. So our plan right now is to reach out political structures as well. So our plan right now is to reach out to the existing structures that exist, present our case. This is what we want to do. And we know right now that who are we to just show up in your neighborhood and tell you this is how to do it? We're trying to say that this is the idea that we have. You probably have one or two to also add to it, you know, and bring on the table. And another major component of this is also resource. It costs money to do things, you know. So
I was about to ask, how do you get your funding? So
those are part of the things we look, as it is right now, we're just a group of people pulling resources together to say we want to do this. But yes, we're also seeking out partners, institutional partners, donor organizations who are also interested in this. And we realize that even sometimes, I mean, donor can have his own agenda, but this is our country. This is what we believe we want to do. If it tallies with what you want to do, why not? If not? So we are putting our money where our mouth is from the get-go to say that our own little tiny bits of money that we're able to make, we're trying to put it around an agenda to actually create the country that we want. It is, I don't think there's anything else that shows commitment to something more than that. So we're hoping that all of the things that we require right now for us to have a sustainable organization in terms of also having revenue, income streams. Of course, we plan to, our sustainability plan has a part of it right now that has to do with us even also having investment that's going to generate money. We intend to have a hub, or a hub that probably has facilities that people will be coming to use for meetings and all of that, virtual offices, all still within that same youth ecosystem, creating value.
Talking about creating value, let's just quickly go back to the fact you mentioned that you have a show on community radio and you intend to go further. What would be what would the show be focusing on? What's the focus of the program? Are you going to have one young person who's excelling in one aspect? I don't know, how is it going to work? Okay,
so what we want to do is this: is that now like I said earlier, we know not everybody's going to run for office, but we want to sanitize the whole process of change, the whole process of institutionalizing change in Nigeria. So I'm sure you are now tired of conversations whereby, oh, over drink we're talking about this. Maybe on an aircraft we're arguing about this. There's even a challenge right now going on. Everybody who I know who is a medical doctor, who is a young person, if they have not left, they're planning to go. That's a crisis, and nobody's even talking about it. Just recently, 2 days ago, I saw on Twitter, a Saudi Arabia company came here to recruit consultants, and they said about maybe 250,000, or I don't know the exact number of people who turned up. Some of them have jobs, some of them don't. But they're all trying to escape to go to Saudi Arabia. So if we have a system whereby our medical practitioners, our hospitals are about to become death labs, where you just go and die, you know? So these are part of the things that we need to begin to look at and see how we can make a difference.
Interesting. So you'll be talking about matters and issues that affect young people.
Yes, specifically what we want to do with the program is this: is that we want sector specific. So if you're a youth in enterprise, you've created value. So you're probably doing something that is right. You deserve a voice at the table. So we just don't want to make it just another conversation of chit chats. We want to bring specific issues that are on the table of the federal government. So what are they talking about in the Federal Executive Council? What policy are they debating? How does it affect us? Okay, there is a 500 billion social investment program. Is that the best use of 500 billion for us? We need to have these real conversations backed by research, backed by data. And I don't see any other person who has the right to be on the table other than a young person who is creating value. So the platform of what we want to do with these avenues is, one, put young people on the table. On national discourse, for us to be able to influence public policy and influence government officials. Secondly, we're also concerned about the enlightenment that I spoke about. It's important. My mom always says, if there are 10 people in a room and you're the smartest person in the room, you are probably the dullest. No, because in the real sense of it, 9 of them are going to kill you. If all of them, 9 of them can agree, then your wisdom is nothing. So your number one job right now is to recruit as many people as possible to start to think like you. So part of what we want to do right now is, how can we get this message out there to young people? How can we all be on the same page? We will all not be in the same political party at the end of the day. But if on this side of the aisle we have a young person innovative with these same ideals, on this other side we have the same thing, wow, we've achieved what we're trying to do.
Interesting. Well, we've been speaking with Opeyemi Oriniowo. He's the Executive Director, Transformative Leadership and Sustainable Development Initiative, TLSDI. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's still one-on-one on PlusTVAfrica, and I still have with me Opeyemi Oriniowo. He's the Executive Director, TLSDI. Now, before we wrap it up, we have a lot of young persons who are going for seminars, they're going for conferences. You know, they don't have money, they don't have jobs, but they come up with these fees to just show up. But we have so many motivational speakers, so they feel hyped up, and they come out of those events, and they're back to square one. How about we transform these talking and this motivation into doing, actual doing, showing them how to, getting them to the point of doing, and then watching them grow? Is there a possibility? Because I don't know. Well, I might have, you know, some people say, oh, you have a job, you know, you're a professional, so you don't have a problem. But my problem is those people who do not have what I have. How do we equip them with the, some of them might not be experts, but how do we also get them involved? How do we mentor them? Is there a room? Is there room for mentorship in your, you know, organization? And how do we bring that to bear for these young persons, whether educated or not?
I mean, very interesting. I mean, I also share the same view. So it's like going to church as well. They gas you up and you just feel like, oh, you're flying, you can walk on water. Then the next day, right now, you're back to square one. I even informally always have this conversation with my friends that a lot of motivational speakers, or a lot of pastors, are actually motivational speakers, but they just in an audience, so they just go through that line and, you know, create. That might be a very unpopular opinion, but
yeah, because you know some people might disagree, but it's okay. Sure.
Okay, yeah. So my view on that is this. I absolutely agree with you. So part of what we want to do on our leadership capacity is a catch them young scheme. We want to bring professionals like you with the value that you have in your head, and professionals like me and all the other young professionals as well. Between 2015 and 2019, about 10 million people joined the voting population. And there's a projection right now that our voting population is probably going to get to 100 million by 2023. So it means that a significant number in millions are going to join the voting population. Do you know what we can do if we have that catchment of number of people, or 70% of them have benefited, or we've been able to empower them? Just political enlightenment alone. Do you know how much the kind of change we can effect? So part of what we're trying to do right now is a school capacity building exercise. Maybe we'll just limit it to 100 level students or SS3, SS2 students. We're going to schools. It's also going to be volunteering led. So of course, we're reaching out to young professionals in Nigeria to say, okay, oh, we think you have this value to add and all of that. We want you to go and speak in one grammar school doing this and that. Those are the kind of commitment we need to say, okay, we'll go and talk to them there about this and that. Maybe there's one or two. Some of us, if I probably had somebody talk to me in my SS2, SS3, I probably will not go and read what I read for my undergrad, if you get what I mean. So a lot of times it's really about having access to information that is we act as if information is free, but it's really no information. So part of what we want to do is catch them young. We have a training that we've designed and all of that we want to reach out to different schools across the country. So that's where volunteering is also going to be volunteering led and also funds involved. So those are part of this I'm talking about.
Yeah, I love the volunteering part, but again, I've worked in the media for a long time, and a lot of young people do not necessarily want to volunteer. They always want the money, so there has to be some payment. And we have International Day for Volunteering, but we never really get to make these youngsters understand that. I mean, in Nigeria, they ask you for 10 years experience.
I know, right?
And in our curriculum in the university, there's no opportunity for you to do that.
Internship.
How do you, as a person or your group, you know, teach our young people that, look, volunteering is very important and it could give you those experiences for free?
I will tell you one thing. I am a product of volunteering. Everything that I think I know, everything I think, or whatever it is I'm leveraging is as a product of volunteering. So I will always put people as an example. That you see that person, they created value to get to where they are going to. The people that I have working on this project right now, working together, some of them, maybe we have some of them being paid, some of them pretty much just volunteers who are just driven by it. But what we make sure that we put on the table is that we give them opportunity, we give them value. We make sure that we have an impact in their lives. And we're connected to what's your aspiration? You can pretty much work on the project without having your own personal self. Personal self-growth must be part of what exactly it is you want to do for a living. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. Same thing goes with, okay, maybe what's going to make you decide to go and talk to a school or this and that? I don't believe in a free lunch. I'll tell you, even in volunteering, it is not free. Even if it is a picture that you take, people say this thing and I think it's ridiculous. And they say, oh, when you're doing something good, why show it to the world? I, as a person, I don't say anything wrong. If that is your get away from it, in fact, that's what you're even doing, you can probably get more people. You to go and do your own and go and take your picture of it, that you're doing something good. So if it is that, it just makes you feel good. It just makes you feel as if you're doing about something really greater than yourself. So if you want to document it and show it, why not if not? So I'm just trying to explain why I believe that there's nothing free. So there are a whole lot of incentive structures
even
that
while
we'll be
you're
creating.
Volunteering, you could also be learning on the job.
Exactly.
Exactly. Well, it's been a very interesting conversation, I must say. Opeyemi Oriniowo, Executive Director at TLSDI. I wish you good luck on
Thank you.
this 5-year plan.
I hope we can have you as a partner.
I mean, I like to volunteer year in, year out.
Okay.
Well, that's it on One on One. My name is Mary Ann Okon. Enjoy the rest of our programs.